Good afternoon, all, and welcome to this webinar Reimagining Banking in the Next Normal. My name is Om Puran. I'll be your co host for today. You all know that the current crisis has thrown up the spotlight on the digital preparedness of the banking industry, and be the onboarding of new customers and handling customer issues and communicating with the implications. The COVID 19 outbreak is causing worldwide concerns and economic hardships for consumers, businesses, and communities across the globe. These are genuinely challenging spells for companies and employees in every market. Looking at these in mind, we have put up today's discussion wherein our expert shall answer these pressing questions. Now, before we move on to our main session, let me do a quick round of introduction. I'll start with Yash Technologies. Yash is a leading technology service provider with 2 decades of experience. It helps chart growth story of its customers with its best-in-class end-to-end solution and collaborative approach. It has a matured banking line of business, serving some of the prestigious large banks across US, UK, Middle East, and rest of the world. Solstice Middle East is the division of Yash Technology in the Middle East, and it's headquartered in Dubai. Now let's have a quick look at our speakers. Our host and moderator for today is Mr. Gautam Gupta. Gautam is serving as the Vice President Enterprise Solution with Yash Technologies. Gautam has been associated with Yash for more than 15 years. He has over 28 years of experience in the IT industry. Gautam is primarily responsible for aligning the company's digital vision with the emerging and futuristic technologies which are relevant to customers and the industries. He has led large customer engagement and projects in diverse industry verticals, including banking. As a guest panelist, next we have Mr. Tariq Madani. Mr. Tariq is serving as the AVP, Head of Mobile and Online Banking at Sharjah Islamic Bank. Tariq is a seasoned banking professional and an experienced digital marketing specialist. He has developed substantial banking, technical, business, consulting, and management skills during his 25 plus years of experience in the Middle East. He has a successful track record of implementing and launching various banking solutions for regional banks. He is currently involved in Sharjah Islamic Bank's digital banking transformation and migration strategy. Next, we have Mr. Hitesh Sarda as a panelist. Mr. Hitesh is serving as Vice President, Banking and Financial Services at Yash Technologies. Hitesh is a part of the banking practice at Yash and has spent 2 decades in banking industry while building and managing business critical applications. At Yash, he mainly advises banks on improving customer experience and operational excellence as a part of the digital transformation journey. Now, before I hand over the mic to Gautam, wanted to highlight a few points. Today's webinar will be available on demand after the live session, and we'll be sharing you the details very soon. We have a Q&A session at the end of the main session. If you have any question for our speaker, please feel free to send it through the Ask a Question tab in your player. We'll be answering and taking them at the end of the session. So without any further ado, I would like to start the panel discussion by welcoming Mr. Gautam Gupta. Over to you, Mr. Gautam. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Om, and good afternoon, everyone. And hopefully, everyone had a good Eid this season. And as we all know, the global narrative around COVID-19 is shifting. And across the world, the businesses, government, media, and public discourse are gradually refocusing as to how to combat the virus towards and how to reopen and rebuild economies. And that what those economies would look like going forward as well. So as the government of to varying degrees began to tentatively loosen the lockdown and the restrictions, it is becoming clear that the world can never return completely to the life as we knew it before. This crisis will leave a legacy, one characterized by a near unprecedented uptake of financial technologies. Now, across the Middle East and North Africa, the rapid surge in digital banking and fintech predates and will outlast the pandemic. Online payments penetration across MENA has reached 76%, which is expected to increase. The region contains over 400 million people, predominantly united by a common language and similar consumption habits. So we definitely are going to see a lot more penetration of digital technologies, of fintech solutions across the board. And yet the pandemic is undeniably served by a catalyst uh, like COVID for the consumer uptake. With the Gulf Cooperation Council in particular set to experience a surge in use of fintech platforms as consumers turn away from physical offering, a surge that is already begun. The pandemic is merely a catalyzed by the uptake of what is already available, shifting consumer behavior, and when the dust of this pandemic begins to settle, the new behavior will still remain, and we'll continue to see an upsurge in that area. So today, to discuss what this upsurge is all about, how banking and fintech companies are reshaping themselves post-COVID era, we have our experts today as part of our panel, Mr. Tariq Madani and Mr. Hitesh Sarda with me for sharing their perspective and as to how they have been seeing in the business and in the industry so far. So I would like to welcome Mr. Tariq Madani and Hitesh, and good afternoon to you. My first question is for Mr. Tariq. What changes have you seen at SIB, and how SIB or Sharjah Islamic Bank is coping with COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 situation?
Thanks, Gautam, for the question. First of all, I would like to thank Yash Technologies for this opportunity, and also my friend here, Hitesh and Gautam. It would be a great session for all of the attendees here. We'll bring great experience and great knowledge to everyone. Okay, coming back to your question, at Sharjah Islamic Bank, we have seen the COVID-19 show us the way forward in digital banking. Our transaction volumes have definitely increased. They've gone up more than 50% because of the digital adaptation of customers. We've also seen the conversion rates increase. It was at a very snail pace earlier, but because of the COVID-19 situation, there was a drastic increase in the digital adaptation, both by our corporate and retail customers.
Interesting. So, do you see a technology playing an increasingly important role in helping banks navigate the new normal? Do you have any specific example that you can quote?
Well, you're absolutely right. Technology, has always been the backbone of our banking industry. Recently, we have seen an increase in the digital customer behaviors. They do not have an option as of now. The only option and the way forward is digital banking. The customers don't wish to go to the branches and meet people face to face. So that is a very good use case. It's a very good example where customers are using the mobile and the online banking for their day-to-day banking needs.
Okay, very interesting. So my next question is for Hitesh. Hitesh, have you seen any other example of the technology playing an important role? I know you have been working with a lot of banks in the Middle East region. So any areas that you see where the customers are trying to cope up with the pandemic?
Sure, Gautam, and good afternoon. Yes, we've seen a lot of increase in the digital adoption or the adoption of digital channels, as Tariq has mentioned. So it's not being restricted to only transacting using digital channels or running your transaction reports or your account statements, etc. It has now, the customers are now comfortable using the digital channels also to adhere to their other needs like onboarding or customer service. We've seen customers open accounts with the banks or even using digital channels like bots or chats for their customer service requirements.
Okay, so you mentioned, Hitesh, about customer onboarding. So can you elaborate a little bit? What is digital customer onboarding, and how can digital customer onboarding in banks specifically can increase sales and build loyalty?
Sure, Gautam. So digital customer onboarding is the customer creating a new relationship with the bank. So whether it is open a new account or to take any other financial product or service like applying for a card, specifically from the comfort and safety of their home. So you are not forced to visit branches, unlike in the past, for these kind of interactions with the bank. So this is now increasingly used and demanded by the customers and are of course offered by the banks. So it has been consistent, and people are asking for more and more of these offerings, especially thanks to several governments now issuing government IDs or digital IDs. So you take digital ID as one part, you take the rest of the digital transformation journey the banks are on, and then you take the pandemic like COVID-19, and which actually was the tipping point to accelerate all these other ingredients that were in place. So now you are seeing a lot of digital customer onboarding, whether the banks have already rolled it out or in process of rolling it out.
Okay. So, Tariq, this question now rolls over to you. I mean, in your bank, do you see an uptick in your digital channels and digital onboarding?
Yes, definitely. We have seen very high, uptake in that, and there's definitely been a peak, from our customers inquiring about digital onboarding and having digital services through the mobile and online banking. Earlier, customers were very skeptical. They were not very comfortable in using digital channels. But because of the COVID-19 situation and because of the awareness that we have, even shared with the customers, the digital services are definitely increased. And even the customers are inquiring and learning from the banks on the services that we provide digitally to customers.
Okay. So as we move on, so my next question is for Hitesh on digital onboarding journey. I mean, I'm sure everyone in the banking and the fintech industry got impacted with that, and some banks had already started this journey, and some could not before the COVID hit them. So the banks who could not start their digital onboarding journey, what is your recommendation? What they should do about it, and how they should go about doing it. Hitesh?
Yes, Gautam. And
Yeah.
our poll is also on the same. So if the audience can take a moment to uh, reply to the poll, because I believe a lot of banks are already in the journey, but if they are not on that journey, could be because of two reasons. So the easier one would be that the bank had decided sometime in the past that it doesn't make sense to provide digital onboarding. Maybe that is because of some regulations of that nation, or maybe it was pure ROI. So I would recommend that the banks revisit those decisions, have a look at the decision-making criteria, especially because in the past the ROI computation never took in events like what we just are going through. So how does the bank survive where the customer can't walk into the branch? What do you do then? What is your business continuity in such cases? So once you put these black swan events into the mix, the ROI will start making sense, as well as the compliance issues. Like I mentioned, a lot of countries are now pushing for digital ID, for cashless, for so this together, you might realize that it's a right time to think about onboarding your customers digitally. For the banks which are thinking about it but not sure where to go or how do you I mean, what are the next step? What is the journey overall looking like? Then it could be that you partner with a fintech or a company like Yash, where we consult banks on adopting digital onboarding, right from business case preparation, the entire program management or architecture advisory, as well as we have an onboarding product that can be configured, integrated with the bank systems and go live in a very short period of time. So you get a full picture of how to go about on this journey step by step, and can make your decisions, and we can definitely help and support you on that.
Sure, Hitesh, and that's a good, great insight in terms of how the bank should start looking at some of the areas on the digital transformation and automation. So that reminds me, I mean, a lot of banks were earlier anyway were trying to optimize their business processes and take their services to the market more effectively, and automation has been a key player in that space. And so my next question is for Tariq. I mean, have you used an automation to improve banking customer experience, and can you share some examples how it has helped SIB in that process?
Yes, we currently do use RPA. It is basically for routine tasks and for high volume tasks. So it definitely is very useful in reducing the turnaround times. It also helps in increasing and improving the customer satisfaction levels. A good example is installment postponement. So currently, if a customer has a loan, we call it finance in Islamic banking. If they want to postpone their installment, it is very simple. The RP handles that case. If you might be aware, UAE Central Bank, had mandated all the banks in UAE to support the community by deferring their installments. So we have already automated that process through RPA through various digital channels.
Okay. Yes, I think RPA is becoming one of the key automation route for most of the banks and financial institutions, and there are a lot of players in that domain. So, I mean, this is something that a lot of banks are adopting. So, Hitesh, I mean, the next question is for you. I mean, what is your experience in the Middle East region? How do you think it is changing the banking industry, and how relevant it is in the post-COVID world?
So in fact, I think the banks are now discovering that the R in RPA is for rapid, because that is really the situation right now where you need a rapid response. So RPA is now more than just process automation, but the quick implementation timelines make it one of the most important tools for unexpected events like the one we are having right now. Like Tariq mentioned, postponing installments. No bank had that as an IT initiative on their roadmap, right? You would not have expected that you will have to postpone everyone's installments. But RPA allowed banks to react quickly to this. It's a good tool in normal times to have in your toolkit, but in uncertain times where there is an unexpected change in the volume, so your some team might really get overloaded with work, also because capacity constraints, people are not able to come into office, people are sick, or you're not able to travel. So there's a lot of uncertainty in your capacity and your volumes. In such events, RPA really outshines. So I strongly recommend every bank, wherever I meet, is to either build a small tactical RPA team in-house so that you can quickly respond to such events, or partner with an IT services company like Yash and Solutions to help them support in such unexpected changes in volumes and the operational tasks.
Thanks, Hitesh, again for the great insights as to how customers can look at RPA for automating their business processes. With that, we have our next poll question. So the question is on your screen, and if you can take a minute to respond to that. So question is, what are the various innovations you would like to implement or explore for your bank? The options are AI, RPA, and chatbot. Second option is blockchain. Third option is AI platforms and or a hybrid cloud. So please vote for it, and it will help us to analyze what customers are looking for. So moving on, my next question is for Tariq on the emerging trends, and it is interesting to see. I mean, a lot of banks are moving towards digitalization, and a lot of fintech companies are looking at artificial intelligence and machine learning for maturing their products and services. And so, how do you see, like artificial intelligence based chatbots uh, can take the burden of their customer service centers? And have you done anything similar in your bank, in your experience, Tariq? I think Tariq, you put yourself on mute.
Yeah, I think someone had muted me. I think the organizers. Anyway, are you able to hear me?
Yes, welcome back.
Yeah. Okay, I heard the question. Actually, we are still exploring chatbots. We haven't implemented them as yet at SIB. We're also looking at voice bots like Alexa and Siri, but we haven't implemented anything as yet because I know in the subcontinent and all, the uptake is quite good for chatbots. Whereas in UAE, chatbots are still being implemented at banks and are not very much mature, but we are definitely looking into it.
Okay. It'll be interesting to see what SIP does in that area. So my next question is for Hitesh. Hitesh, I know you have been involved in a lot of banking initiatives where a lot of banks are trying to do a lot of financial reporting. Uh, and similarly now, predictive analytics in financial services is becoming very important, and along with artificial intelligence making banks more confident about the outcomes. So what are your thoughts on this? I mean, how do you see the technologies like predictive analytics and AI are shaping the banking industry?
Sure, Gautam. So let's look at AI first, and I agree with Tariq. So in other banks also where I interact with, chatbots or voice bots are little not part of the mainstream. Banks are doing probably POCs with them or seeing whether they make sense, doing a small pilot somewhere. But where I see it going is if you integrate it strongly with AI to be able to respond to general language from the customer rather than very rigid select this, select that kind of situation, you would see the adoption to improve much better than the current replacing your FAQs, your help page kind of chatbots. And then when you integrate it with open banking APIs or with data analytics, even chatbots start to shine. So there are a lot of customer facing use cases for this, but even otherwise, when you are looking at non-customer facing use cases, there are so many places across the entire bank where you can leverage data analytics as well as AI, for example, to improve the bank's sales effectiveness or to really decide the combination of products that they offer to their customers or their feature set, or to look at your risk management, your stress testing. All of these areas have a strong benefit that they can derive from implementing these technologies.
And certainly, I mean, I have a follow-up question for Tariq on the similar area. So, I mean, Tariq, I know you have been with SIB for a long time, and my question is how AI and few of the new emerging technologies, especially in the areas of compliance, how do you see them helping, and what are the new emerging technologies or next generation trends in banking that you foresee coming up? So, your thoughts on that?
Currently, we are looking at blockchain, open banking, and some central authentication systems in UAE, like UAE Pass. Okay, these are some of the next generation trends. We are currently exploring.
Yeah, okay. And any thoughts on the compliance part? I mean, you have been closely associated with there. How do you think it will help in the compliance side of things?
Yes, compliance is a very key area, in UAE, and especially with the regulatory requirements coming into play. UAE Pass actually plays a great role here because the KYC, validation and authenticated documents to be shared between the bank and the regulatories and different government agencies. That is a very key area that we're looking into, the compliance, definitely.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So, Hitesh, I know Celsius and Yash offer a lot of services around digital transformation. So can you elaborate a little bit on the kind of services that you offer for the banking industry in the Middle East region so that our customers are aware, and if they need, they can reach out to you?
Thanks, Gautam. Yes, so of course, we are an IT integration and services provider, so we offer the full breadth of technology solutions, but our focus is mostly on the customer lifecycle management. And by that, I mean starting from how you acquire your customers. So how is your CRM setup? Is it well integrated? Does it give the right insight to your sales and your front office staff? To aiding in customer onboarding, whether it is through digital onboarding or whether it is in-branch onboarding or other mediums, to customer service around both self-service through chatbots and voice bots, or whether through in-branch service and making sure your customer feedback management is correctly tuned, metrics are correctly configured, etc. And then finally, how do you upsell, cross-sell, and reach out to new and existing customers? So what is your customer engagement process looks like? So this entire breadth or the entire life cycle of the customer is where Yash and Solutions focuses on right now, and we strongly believe that the new era of AI, ML, RPA, blockchain, open APIs, these really help uh, bring in great solutions for this entire space.
Interesting. And yeah, absolutely. And that's how, uh, as a service provider, I think you play a key role in terms of accelerating uh, customer journeys on the digital platform. So definitely look forward for more success stories from your end, Hitesh. So my next question is for Tariq. Now, how do you see the road ahead, and how banks should be prepared in situation like what we are in today? So how do you see the banks and fintech companies preparing themselves?
I think the banks need to adapt to the growing challenges from fintechs, and we also have to look at regulatory requirements. We need to cater to those, in the shortest turnaround times. The road ahead looks very bright, especially for the UAE banking industry, as we support the UAE government, and we fast-pace the digital era of the UAE economy by supporting the local financial markets through financial financing developing projects. So definitely the road looks very bright ahead.
Okay, okay. So that certainly was some great insights from the industry experts with Tariq and Hitesh, and I'm sure everyone in the audience would be able to get some more insights as we move forward. So with that, I would like to open the floor for any questions we might have from the audience. So so let's see what questions we have from the audience. Okay, so here's the first question, and question is for Tariq. So Tariq, the question is for you. COVID-19 has underscored the need of companies to maximize the use of technology, whether for business continuity or to expand their digital footprint. What initiatives in terms of innovation and in adopting new technologies has Sharjah Islamic Bank implemented are in the pipeline specifically because of COVID?
Yes, we have implemented a lot of things like I had earlier mentioned the RPA for the installment postponement. RPA is a great technology, that we currently use for automating a lot of services. In addition to that, we are also looking into enhancing our digital onboarding for customers to reduce the turnaround times. So that is another area we're looking into innovation. Plus, there is a UAE Pass. UAE Pass, as I had earlier mentioned, it is a very good initiative by the UAE government, which will help a lot of banks to get all the KYC done for customers. So I would also like to, tell the audience here who are from the UAE to register for UAE Pass. It is a great thing, and it can be used as a single sign-on for all your services, including your banking needs and your government needs. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tariq. And there's a follow-up question for you, Tariq, again. And this question is, what is the fintech scene in UAE? And are there any use cases for which you are looking for a partner in any fintech?
Yes, definitely. Fintechs, okay, we look at them as our competitors, but definitely what we have done at Sharjah Islamic Bank, we have actually partnered with fintechs. So we look at it as more of an opportunity. We have some use cases where we have partnered with fintechs, like for example, digital onboarding again. That is a great scene where we have already partnered with one local fintech to ensure that the digital onboarding journey is seamless for customers and even the back-end systems are digitized. So that is one very good case. Plus, we are also looking at UAE Pass. UAE Pass is another area where fintechs can work on, which will definitely help all the banks because the use cases around UAE Pass are so many, which is unimaginable, and many banks are still in the initial stages. So going forward, I can see at least for the coming 3 to 4 years, UAE Pass will definitely pick up, and there will be a lot of use cases, where fintechs can work on. And definitely, banks have to partner with the fintechs to help them, complete the journey for UAE Pass.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tariq. And so my next question is for Mr. Hitesh. So Hitesh, there's an audience question for you. How should a bank go about digital onboarding if there is no digital ID like UAE Pass in the country?
Gautam. Yes, that's an interesting question. And even if there is an ID like UAE Pass, which is not a mandatory ID, so you would have a part of the population which do not have UAE Pass or a digital ID. So you would have to provide an alternate or a backup. So in UAE, you might want to also support the national ID. So we are working with some of our banks where we are implementing OCR to be able to scan the driving license or the passport to be able to ascertain the identity of the person who's opening the account. However, this may not be enough, or it may be enough depending on the regulations in your area. So in certain countries, banks are allowed to open a small value account where the balance cannot exceed a certain threshold with these IDs, which cannot be digitally verified. In certain places, it is a hybrid model where you complete all your account opening formalities online, but then you would get a verification call or a visit uh, to complete the ID verification as an offline. So it's a hybrid online offline approach. So the right answer will really depend on where you are and what your local regulations are.
Okay, thank you so much, Hitesh. That was a good detailed answer. So with that, I have another question for you, Hitesh. And you mentioned analytics is increasingly helping the bank's sales effort, product development, and risk management. And so, can you give your views on this and with some examples?
Certainly. So there are a lot of use cases which the banks have started implementing. So for example, in sales effort, there is a lot of data analytics work is going where you're trying to predict the next best offer or the next best action of the customer. You are trying to analyze the effectiveness of the campaigns you have run in the past. You are trying to see which product is a right fit for the customer. So if you are trying to recommend a credit card, you want to recommend a card which is appropriate for the customer, also where the chance of conversion or the expectation of conversion is much higher, and the same holds for other offers you make, whether it is an auto loan or insurance or any of that. So there is a lot of insights that can be gained with analyzing your existing customer behavior and existing conversion patterns. Similarly, if you look at uh, product development, I just mentioned a little bit about it. So what should be your, say, your next credit card look like? Should it have more travel points? Should it have more reward points? Should it have more reward points for online banking now versus in-store banking, in-store shopping? So there's a lot of combinations that you can evolve your product with. But if you really analyze your usage data and your customer demography, you would then be able to take the right decisions on how to evolve your products and your services for your customers. Yeah. Similarly, on risk management, there's so much that can be done. I mean, we have all heard about like predictive fraud analytics in payments, in transfers. We have looked at stress testing your portfolio, your loan portfolio, for example, in such time. So which industry sector are getting most impacted? Do you proactively reach out to those companies and maybe look at how you can help them recast their loans or change the structure of the loan? And also you can do a lot in risk management, in predictive fraud analytics, and like Tariq said, in KYC. So there are several use cases. So it's really essential that the banks look at their current problem set with open mind and look to partner with some fintechs or with some IT companies to explore newer ways of addressing pain points that the banks have.
And certainly, and you brought up a good point in terms of you know fraud detection and risk management. I mean, a lot of companies are actually investing heavily in these areas, especially the number of cyber attacks that we have started seeing across the board in various institutions. So definitely. So those were all the questions that we got from the audience. So we'll wait for some more questions and see if there are any. Otherwise, but this was definitely a great insight session from Tariq, you as well as Hitesh, and I think we got to learn a lot more new things as to how banking and fintech industries are adopting new technologies and how they are reshaping themselves to mitigate uh, the current situation that we have. And as we all say, the economists fear that the shortage in capital would adversely impact the emerging markets, thus preventing governments and businesses from making necessary investments and subsequently delaying the economic recovery. So hopefully, with the increased support for global trade, emerging markets would be able to improve their response to the pandemic and return to the growth in 2021. And we all hope for the best. The advancement in the digital technologies are making the crisis more bearable and thus enabling the businesses to keep working with the access to key services in communication, payments, credit, collaboration, etc., and what you guys already elaborated a great deal upon, and thus enabling the social distancing and helping to fight COVID-19. And we all expect that digital technology to boost during this crisis and, of course, after the crisis as well. So with this, I would like to conclude this session. And if any of you would like to know more about us, then visit our website at www.yash.com, or you can write to us at info@yash.com. Our LinkedIn IDs are already shared on the screen, so you can reach us individually if you would like to. And I would like to wish everyone a good evening. Stay safe, stay healthy. Goodbye for now. Thank you.